Welcome to Beyond the Press Release, Dubai edition. And with us today, Andy Davidson, CEO Chairman of Royal Helium. Why are you going to love this interview? If you love the new space race, then you're going to love knowing that rocket launch activity in 2022 reached a new record high with a liftoff nearly every week. But launch traffic in 2023 is expected to continue even higher, with more companies launching from more places like Florida, Virginia, Alaska, and California. So why does that matter to Royal Helium? Well, they've already got a helium supply agreement in place with a major space launch company, unnamed, but all of us have kind of narrowed it down to what we believe is either one of NASA, SpaceX, which we all know is Musk deal, Blue Origin, which is the Bezos deal, and that's because helium plays a critical role in space launch. Is that right, guys? It's way beyond balloons. It's MRI magnets, airbags, fiber optic cables, tons of applications. Royal Helium's got an initial delivery under the supply agreement that would commence in 2023. So this isn't some far out, deal. The delivery is going to commence in 2023, and it's going to be minimum offtake of 40% of their Steveville plant capacity. So it's big, and they've started the process of building a production facility that is now financed to production. That's what we're talking about. Here's the press release. Steveville Helium plant fully funded with the execution of binding commitment letters for $17.5 million in credit facilities. And I'm going to add this on. It's a total of $23 million when you add in some debt and convertible debt. So Andy, Rocket Man, welcome back.
Good to be here. And just to clarify, Royal Helium is not in Dubai.
Yeah. We are. Okay. But wait, you are in the Dubai of helium, right? At the end of the day, you're the Dubai of helium, aren't you?
Well, I think we're probably the largest exploration region in the world. So, and probably the fastest growing production region in the world as well. So, I'm not going to draw that analogy, but I'm not going to correct you either. So.
Well, it's fitting that my first ever interview from Dubai is, I'm in the middle of oil and gas country. This is it. This is the place. And we're having it with you, and it's good news. So, hey, we already knew that this was potentially coming because it had been announced, but potentially coming and closing are two different things.
Yeah.
How much more relief do you feel today that it's closed, done, locked in? What does that mean for the company to have that locked in now?
Well, I mean, security, right? I mean, there's always a risk that these things can fall apart between term sheet and binding commitment. And so we went through some, additional significant due diligence and a lot of really hard questions, but we skated through it pretty easily. We were very well prepared going into the financing process. So there was no surprises on our end or on the bank's end. And really having access to this capital at this point is critical to us. It takes the financing risk just firmly off the table for first production, which is, a pretty amazing thing to say, frankly.
And we rarely see this in the small cap space. You secured debt facilities with leading bank institutions.
Yeah.
What does that say about they got to do their due diligence?
Yeah.
What does that say if major bank institutions are locking down this funding with you? What does it say about you guys?
Yeah, well, I mean, it says exactly what you think it says, right? So, I mean, these are the same banks who lend to oil and gas majors or mining companies or anyone, really. I mean, it verifies the quality of the asset and the cash flows that'll be coming off of it. So, if there was skepticism over whether or not our project will deliver or if what we were doing was economic or worth it, I think we can firmly put that to bed. Banks don't make a habit of lending money to people who can't pay it back. So,
and there wasn't much skepticism, but you wouldn't fault some people for having it, not because anything personal against you guys, but you're talking about a supply agreement with a major space launch company.
Yeah,
we've never seen that's unbelievable. Yeah. Funding from major bank institutions. There might have been some people thinking this is too good to be true, but it's here, right? How does this position you in the world market now as a leading supplier of helium and your ability going forward to be able to deliver on contracts and even more so?
Yeah, I mean, it in our view, and of course we're biased, but it puts us at the front of the pack amongst helium explorers and producers. I mean, you mentioned it earlier, we're not talking about some theoretical point in the future where we're going to be producing. Like, we're 2 to 3 months away now. So like it's happening. Our facility is being built. It looks like a facility now. it looks like it's going to come in on schedule. So it's our customers very happy. We're ecstatic. It allows us the security to go out and sell the remaining volumes from this plant, and we're in the process of doing that now, which frankly is probably going to change the economics to the high side. So it's a pretty good time to be Royal Helium.
Yeah, because I guess you're gonna have analysts and people around the world are gonna start doing their math and analysis and all that. Let me ask something. You haven't disclosed, and you don't plan to ever disclose, you've said that before, who the customer is.
Yep.
But is it safe to say that, did they give you guys a phone call? Are they also really happy about this, knowing that you've got the funding in place, and now there's no risk to their supply chain?
Yeah, it was a big moment for them too, because this is, as far as we can tell, it's the first time a space launch company has stepped outside of the traditional industrial gas market and gone straight to a producer, and they came to a company that wasn't a producer yet. So they took on a fair bit of risk locking into this deal. And so the fact that we can demonstrate now that financing the facility build is no longer an issue gives them a nice warm and fuzzy as well. So they're ecstatic. We're ecstatic. The whole sort of operating group around Royal, including the group building the facility and all the engineers behind it, are just all breathing a big sigh of relief. Because as much as we know what our project can do, it's still financing a helium facility in Canada. It's not something that's been done a lot, if ever, through major Canadian banks. So it was a step outside the box. But the nice thing about how we've built things around here is we follow a very methodical process. So everything happens in a series of steps, and we follow those steps. And so when they look at the project and say, well, do you have a resource? Well, yes, we do, because we did that last fall. And all of these things are in place. So this, at the end of the day, it becomes basically reviewing an oil and gas project with a completely inert and stable cash flow resource.
And by the way, helium prices, last we spoke, so I just want to get an update on that with you, have been very friendly, because demand, I talked about all the applications, supply is low, demand is high. There are more rocket launches going on this year than the record last year. Is the strength in helium pricing maintaining itself?
Sure is. Yep, sure is. So we're in the process of selling that remaining volume, and so we've got proposals coming at us, and they're all at or above our existing contract price. So there's some upside coming. And when an analyst or whomever, or a bank for that matter, looks at the project, they're going to use the price that you have, right? And so they're going to use the price that we have in our contract of $450. If we manage to come in and deliver a contract at $500, I mean, that changes the model completely. It provides additional security on payback. But the prices have continued to move up, but the shortage is not going away. The uses are not declining. It's a really, really very interesting space to be in.
You've got about $23 million in hand in credit facilities, debt, and convertible debt and all that. How far does that take you, Andy? So ballparkish, how much of that goes to building the plant? Because that's got to be done. And how much money do you have, reserve money do you have to do other things? And how far do you think that takes you?
Yeah, well, I mean, it gets us to the point where we have cash coming back at us, right? And so that's the biggest piece. And part of that $17.5 million credit facility is an operating line of credit that kicks in once we turn the plant on. So that just covers any material cash flow delays that come from the billing and collection of standard receivables. So that gives us a lot to play with. The plant itself now fully funded, all of the trailers that we need to haul helium away funded, the pipeline we need to run funded. Everything is it's done. It's done.
So we don't need you anymore. I mean, you're the architect who put all this together, but now the real work takes place. Now, what are you going to do? What are you going to do at this time? I'm kidding when I say that, because you deserve this. Give us an idea of the cadence for the rest of the year, Andy. Sure. So you talk about 2-3 months. You're 2-3 months away from actually beginning production, which I think is unbelievable. I can't wait for that day to come. And then what does ballpark the cadence look like for the rest of the year?
Sure. So we do have a number of things sort of in the hopper that'll be coming down. Obviously, we're going to be announcing anything major as we go. And the first thing that you'll probably see from us next will be the sale of the remaining gas flows from Steveville. Wow. That's going to be interesting. I think the market's going to like how that looks. We're in the middle of an initial exploration program on some of our Saskatchewan assets. So we announced that a little while ago. So that's nearing completion. And all that's going to do is give us additional targets to go drilling. But we still have 3 wells that we need to go back and test in Saskatchewan. The 2 that we drilled at Ogama and the one at Val Marie. And so look for that sort of post breakup. So that would be sort of, May, June timing, where we get back in the field and do those. But those are essentially new wells, right? I mean, we've drilled them, we just not tested them. So the results that come out of them are going to be the same as they would be if we were drilling a new well. So that's some pretty low hanging fruit for us to bring to market. And then we've also got the engineering essentially done on the first facility at Climax. And if everything goes right, and it never does, but if it did, we'd have a facility there operating in 2023 as well. So that would be
so potentially you'll have even more inventory to sell to other customers.
Yeah. So I mean, this is the thing with our company, because we've drilled so many wells already, and we've now defined the process of how do you take it from drilling a well to producing a well. It's basically just a repeatable system of steps, right? So the facility that we built here, we'll build another one, but it'll be a bit smaller scale for Climax initially. So that just means less costly, because if you recall, those wells are moderately less productive in terms of flow, but almost double the helium cut. So they produce less gas, but more helium. So it's really a nice sort of, almost like a treadmill, right? You put a property on it and the treadmill starts and it comes down and then it rolls off the bottom and you've got gas flowing into a plant. So we've got one field that's ready for the plant. And we've got 2 others that are potentially ready for a plant as early as next year. So it's a pretty good time
is it fair to say you may not need financing again, just from what cash flow might be coming into the company over the next 12 months and then on and on after that?
Well, yes, that's certainly one way we could go. I mean, the cash flows that are going to come off of this are pretty material, and they'll fund whatever we need to do. So then it just becomes a matter of pace and scale, right? And how fast do we want to move? But as we're into production here at Steveville and paying down the debt on these facilities, I mean, they just become expandable, and that's the relationship we built with these banks. Is like the Canadian Western Bank doesn't really wake up in the morning and want to do a $7.5 million loan. They want to do an initial loan into a project and then grow it, and that's the relationship we built with them. So as we go to build plant number 2 at Climax, or 3 or 4, they want to be there. So I think our path to growing cash flow is pretty straightforward.
I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, because just to be fair to all shareholders and potential shareholders out there, look, every company has risks and little weaknesses and things like that. Look, the overall picture today is an unbelievable picture. I think we can all agree it's very hard to find any holes in this. But what are some of the smaller risks or things like that that investors, or that you guys think about and you're always making sure you're staying on top of?
Yeah, well, I mean, the biggest one is still timeline, right? It's making sure that plant gets finished and installed and commissioned and operating at full capacity on time. That remains our singular focus. Now that we have the financing locked up, it is our singular focus. So that's the biggest one. And of course, as we continue to expand and drill new wells, there's going to be misses. I mean, we've seen that in the helium space where we've had companies miss on a few wells. We haven't missed yet. And all that means is that we're going to at some point, right? There's a miss coming, but that's regular exploration risk. I mean, that's part of the game. So,
but right now you've got enough hits in place that you've got a pretty decent idea of what the next 18 months is going to look like.
Yeah, we've got an inventory of wells we can go play with and open up, right? Without having to drill anymore. We will drill more though, just so we're clear on that. And we're getting awfully excited now that the path to production is done at Steveville to get back over to Nazare and start planning out that well, the first big horizontal well into that enormous reservoir. So look for that at some point, hopefully in 2023, because that's going to be a lot of fun. And you want to talk about what keeps you up at night? That does, both in terms of the risk of it not working, but more importantly, what it means for Royal if and when it does work.
And by the way, it's not, pardon the pun, but it's not rocket science. These kind of plants have been time eternal. There's nothing that's a brand new process where you say, well, it's pretty, for the guys building, it's pretty standard construction.
Yeah, I mean, in fact,
Awesome.
well, not most of, every helium liquefier in the world uses the same technology we're using here. If anything, it's older tech than some of the newer membrane stuff. But the interesting thing about it is the cost savings and the power savings by going this road, right? So, you know, a similar plant as Steveville, done using a traditional membrane separator, ones that were quoted for us anyway, were 1,000 more horsepower than what we're using to run that facility. So that's that much less power we need to generate at site. And as a reminder, we generate all of our power from the minor amount of methane that comes out of these wells. So we're making our own anyway. But I mean, there's a real
That's
world
awesome.
scenario where we're a power producer, where we can generate multiple megawatts of power and only use one.
Andy, congratulations on you guys bringing the company to this point. It's still unbelievable to watch. And I think it's not just a great thing for Royal Helium. It's not just a great thing for the helium space. I think it's a great thing for the small cap energy space to
Yeah.
see big wins like this and shows everyone what's possible. And you guys are kind of leading the way. So I'll leave last words to you as to what you want to say to your shareholders now that you've passed this really, really important milestone.
Yeah, well, thanks for that. It does provide. I think it's a good news story for the entire junior resource industry, saying that these partners on the financing side are there. If and when you need them and your project is ready, they're there and they'll listen and they'll work with you. So that's good. But for our shareholders, I would say, with the financing hurdle behind us, buckle up. Here we go.
I love it. I love it. Astronauts, buckle up.
Yeah,
Shareholders, buckle up. It's going to be a great ride in 2023. Andy, thanks for being here, my man.
thank you.
Congratulations. Can't wait to have you guys back.
Perfect. Thank you.
To everybody at home, you've been watching or you've been listening by podcast on Spotify, Google, Apple, your favorite podcast platform. To Andrew Davidson, CEO and Chairman at Royal Helium, Trades in Canada, RHC, for our friends in the US, RHCCF. For those new to the story, because you're seeing rocket launch news, you're seeing massive credit facilities being closed and all the financing in place and production and plant construction now being financed right through. And you want to know more about the company, more about Helium and what it's doing, start with their profile page on Agoracom because it is new. Not a lot of us have much experience in helium, what it's used for, how it's used, how it's found, how it's discovered, how it's produced. So we got great information on their profile page. And once you've got that base knowledge, that great base foundational knowledge, head right over to the Royal Helium website. Do your due diligence, because if you believe in the future of aerospace travel, and we set a record last year in rocket launches, and we're going to set another record this year, then you've got to look at Royal Helium. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day. See you next time. Hey guys, the video's over, but don't forget to help your company by liking it and even leaving a comment below. And then don't forget to help yourself by subscribing to our YouTube channel so you never miss another great Agoracom small cap video.